The topic is the Family Foundation Fund, and we're talking to Mr. OKirk. And of course, Mr. Kirk, during this last segment, let's give you an opportunity not only to continue some of the things that you've been talking about, but also to perhaps give our audience some direction in terms of what they might be able to do to assist you in reaching out to touch the lives of these young people.
Well, Dr. Haney, we look for men who love the Lord and who fear the Lord and who are willing to partner with us to be surrogate fathers. Typically, we look for men who are between the age of, say, 40 to 65. That doesn't mean that younger men can't apply. But see, if you're between that age of 40 to 65, more than likely you have already brought your own children through that period of adolescence. So experientially, you know some of the challenges that you're going to confront and have to deal with. So we look for that, but we want men who understand how to cover as well. And see, and that's an area that I find as I talk to men and men's group around the city that we're kind of void of understanding. To be able to cover effectively, you have to walk with the Lord.
All right.
See, He is our covering. And He wants us to be able to cover those that He's given us responsibility for. My wife and my 8 kids, I have to cover them. And now how does that work? First of all, I have a prayer life where I'm going to talk to the Lord. And as I talk to the Lord, just like I talk to you, you talk back to me.
All right.
Well, see, the Lord does speak to us. This is foreign to many people. They believe in prayer, but they don't believe in Him speaking back to them.
All right.
See, if you understand, Abraham, he didn't have a Bible to read, but he knew what to do because he talked with the Lord. Moses didn't have a Bible to read. The Bible hadn't been written. But he knew what to do because he talked with the Lord. Adam, obviously, what came in the cool of the tree was the Lord's voice. That's what Adam's relation. He knew the Lord. He knew His voice. Jesus tells us in Matthew, "My sheep know my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow." So in order to cover, we have to walk with the Lord and have a prayer life to be in communion with the Lord. That He will begin to show us and tell us things that pertain to our family and those that we cover. For instance, there's one young man in our mentoring program that the Lord had shown me just, I guess, last spring. He was standing in the middle of a desolate place, and he was naked from the waist up. And the Lord showed me that something was getting ready to happen. Well, what happened was, within 2 months' time, his grandmother signed him out of the program.
All right.
In other words, she removed him from the covering. He was standing naked and in a desolate place. And the Lord showed that 2 months before. And of course, we're still in a relationship. We pray with him, and he's being restored to the program now. But what I'm saying, the Lord showed that even before it happened. Now, the Lord wants to commune with us. He wants us to show us things. And this is not anything new. You know, he says, to them He foreknew, He also predestined. In other words, He has known us before we were in our mother's womb. And He has destined us to do things here on the earth. He destined you to be on this show and to host this show. For whatever purpose, He has destined me to be here today. He knew that from the beginning of time that we would be here on the show. Well, see, He knows all of these children. All of us were with God before we came to the earth. How do we know this? Jeremiah 1 says, before you were in your mother's womb, I knew thee. And He tells Jeremiah, I commissioned you to be a prophet.
All right.
So before we were in our mother's womb, we were in the mind of God. We were in the Spirit of God. We were with Him. Then He sent us to the earth for a mission. Now His order in the earth can be found in 1 Corinthians 11. The head of every man is Christ. The head of Christ is God. And the head of the woman is the man. So that's His order in the earth. So if we try to remove His order, then what we have is a breach. And in that breach, the devil is able to implement his plan. That's why being a surrogate father and caring for those who are fatherless or caring for the single moms or the widows are so crucial. You'll find that normally when there's been a divorce, almost immediately after divorce, there will be sickness in the home. And I heard Dr. OKirk3 talk about some of this. You know, that there will be sickness in the home, there will be anxiety and distress.
Okay.
Children will become rebellious,
Oh, yes.
disobedient. And they start going to counselors and doctors trying to figure all this out. Well, what happened? There's been a breach. And the devil had brought in all kinds of contaminating things to defile the household. That's why it's important that the churches and the ministries, you know, speak the truth to your men. Call them to accountability. Call them to the place of prophetic fatherhood. Are you hearing the Lord concerning your family? Are you praying and receiving concerning what's going on with them? Before our seventh child was born, one day my wife was coming out on the driveway, and she just had her CD player on, and she was just praising the Lord. The Lord told her to cut it off and pray. She did exactly what she heard the Lord say. She drove all the way over to Harding Place. When she got on Harding Place, a drunk driver hit her. She's 7 months pregnant, and knocked her off of Harding Place into the tree and into some trees and destroyed our Suburban. I get the call from Southern Hills Hospital. When I arrive at Southern Hills Hospital, she says, "Honey, last night the Lord gave me a dream. I was in the back of an ambulance." He said, "Before I drove out of the driveway today, he told me to cut my radio off and pray." Now, because her husband covers her, she is able to hear and discern. She could have been dead, and my seventh child could have been dead today. But she is covered by her husband. And our children are covered by their father. Every husband needs to cover his wife. He needs to cover his children. But he has to walk with God in communion, in prayer, and hear God to be able to do that. Now, as we grow in the Lord, he tells us to expand our tent peg. And that's why you saw that Hannah took Samuel to Eli, and Samuel grew up in the care of Eli. Eli didn't know how to hear the Lord. I mean, Samuel didn't know how to hear the Lord. The Lord called Samuel. And who told Samuel it was the Lord? It was Eli. He said, the next time the Lord called you, say, "Here I am."
All right.
Well, see, he had a mentor, a father, to teach him the way of the Lord.
Good.
So if you don't have a boy to learn the way of the Lord, if you don't have a father to teach the boy the way of the Lord, what's going to happen to that boy? He will learn the way of the devil. So he'll wind up down at juvenile. He'll wind up killing someone. He'll wind up in a gang. He'll wind up robbing a store, because there is no one who is teaching the boy the way to go. And that is why we started the Family Foundation Fund, to begin this process. We recruit surrogate fathers who are willing to step beyond their own family. They bring the boy into their family on weekends. He visits their home, stays over with them. He has an opportunity to learn how to fix a car or mow grass or wash windows, whatever the surrogate father is doing, that boy does. In the course of the years that he's in the program, you'll find that the surrogate father and that boy begin to bond. One of my surrogate sons just left for the military. When he went to sign up, he asked me, he said, "I need to talk with you." We got together for lunch. We sat down and talked. And then he went to sign up 3 or 4 weeks after that. After he signed up, he called me and he says, "Mr. Odie, I've signed up today." He said, they're going to swear me in about 2 weeks. I said, "Okay, well, we want you over to the house for dinner." Now, this particular surrogate son, he's white, and it's obvious that I'm black. When I went to the swearing-in ceremony, he was back in the area where they swear them in. The officer comes out, and he looks at me, he says, "You're the father?" And I said, "Yes, I am." Well, see, he's been with me since he was 9 years old. I'm the only father that he knows. So consequently, when he told the sergeant, "That's my father out there," by the way, he's African American. So, I mean, but what's happened to that boy, he's on track. He's not in prison. He's not getting girls pregnant out of wedlock. I'm not saying he's doing everything right, but he knows the Lord. He has confessed Christianity, and I'm praying that he will walk in the fullness of the things that we have imparted to him. He's on his way now. And I'm very blessed to know that he has been taught the way. And I told him, I said, "I'll be praying for you." And we will not forget you. We'll be praying for you. And if you run into a roadblock, you know who to call. He said, "Yes, sir." So, I mean, you begin to train them, and they begin to look to you as their father, the man who imparted destiny unto them.
And of course, Mr. Kirk, let me thank you over the last half minute that we have here for bringing us that excellent information about Family Foundation Fund. As a matter of fact, it's much more than simply Family Foundation Fund. I think it's sort of deceptive in terms of what we've been talking about, because essentially you're calling to task a large number of individuals who do have the ability to take on that responsibility that you're talking about. And I think that just to hear that stated over and over again, as we've stated that today, I think that that's encouraging, and hopefully some of our audience will be encouraged to become involved in what you're doing. And of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.